That's not sort of the intent of it. But I think the paradigm shift that we're trying to get across in terms of the policy pilot is that to get away from the traditional mode of policy design from, okay, let's sort of let's implement this policy and let's see if it works, but let's only think about that for the first 2 years, and then after that we'll just assume that this policy will work. The piloting mode then always brings in the process of learning lessons and reviewing the policy continually every year or every 2 years, and keeps the policy in the mode that, well, that information may suggest at some point in the time that that policy should maybe either be changed, tweaked, or dropped, but that feedback loop always exists and is formally built into the policy. And by sort of referring to it as in pilot mode, it sort of sends the new signal that the information and the process involved in review and assessment and continual improvement is an inherent part of a policy or a plan, and not any sort of just implement and then let it go and do its thing. So I guess it's maybe perhaps a matter of a bit of interpreting the word pilot, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Darren. One thing that you did not mention, which probably is in your mind insofar as multi-stakeholder participation is concerned, is the need for the stakeholders to own up, to buy in to the plan. This is very important, and I'm stressing this because I'd like to ask you about planners being the architects and facilitators, especially in a situation where it is highly diversified and highly complex. I am involved in such a project right now, and my experience has been that we have been saying, or I have been saying, that we are a facilitator because we want buy-in, and you don't want people to think that you are planning for them, so you cannot be an architect. Okay, so but the problem is that if you talk to stakeholders, meaning the community, the people themselves, and you're talking about long-term planning, and local governments are only have 3-year terms, so they don't think long-term. So how do you become a facilitator if you are designing a long-term plan where people are really just thinking short-term, and at the same time trying not to be an architect because you want the buy-in?
Many good points. Well, I think in terms of what we observed in the policies that we have studied in this regard, of course, the multi-stakeholder deliberation, as you're well aware of, is a critical part of the sustainable development process. Perhaps the misuse in the past has been a lot toward engaging stakeholders just to sort of legitimize the process, as opposed to using it as an analytical tool to actually understand and actually come up with the solutions. So I think the stakeholders are typically not brought in really in that sort of early sort of conceiving stage. I think we need new mechanisms to bring in representation from groups early on to help bring the perspectives to bear in how the policy is and plans are sort of created and what goes into them. So that's the important sort of use of or leveraging of multiple perspectives is for actual thinking about policy design. I think your question was more about sort of how do you facilitate that, or be an architect to facilitate that over such a long time frame. Well, architect is important to sort of set some structure to the process, but in terms of using these tools in sort of as a package, you need to sort of help foster self-organization, need to have formal review process to bring people together periodically to review and assess and understand what needs to be improved. So it's this process that keeps the policy and plan in a pilot mode that brings stakeholders in continually over time, breathes life and dynamics into the policy itself, as opposed to it being a rigid thing designed once by an architect that stands there forever. This is a much more fluid process than an architect designing a building.
Okay, thank you very much. If you have one more, I'm happy to take. If not, then we move to the next presentation, because this is the first presentation on this adaptive governance. You may have more points to raise, but we have a lot of chances to discuss these points later. So first, I understand very important 3 points were raised with regard to stakeholder participation and the modeling pilot phase and various tools to be applied. But keeping this in mind, we move on to next presentations. So thank you, Darren, for your very interesting presentation. Thank you very much.